Hi everyone, from me, Brent Graham of goodforthegame.co.za, Thursday night, 9 o'clock. Time for the handicap rugby chat that matters. And yes, that's the Aviva Stadium in the background behind me there. Absolutely can't wait for this one. One of the biggest test matches of one that the Box and Ireland would have been building to. Looking forward to seeing what the panel think of that. And let's welcome the panel. I'm trying to read his name there. Argentina. I'm guessing you're saying there, Gav. I know not only were you on before the game, how do you pronounce it?
Argentina. That's what I was shouting on Sunday afternoon when I kept coming back and coming back and coming back again. It was beautiful to watch.
Well, we've certainly spoken about it a bit over the last I'd say almost over the last year. There's been some incredible comebacks in rugby where you've had a team leading, like I think Scotland were leading 21-0, and we've seen a few of it at international and club level. I mean, you don't have to go far back to know when Australia came back against South Africa by, I think, probably a similar margin. But what a great comeback it was, and put a cap on a pretty decent weekend for yourself there in the end, I think.
Yes, so this was the perfect bet. Well, it was the second perfect betting weekend, because the perfect weekend is when you get everything right. In this case, I got the first two games wrong, and then it all went right. So I had what I would say is the second best weekend. I actually ran out of money. At 21-0, I didn't have a bet. My last bet was at 14-0. Back to plus, they were plus 14.5 at the time, at half time. And they were 8-1 to win the game. So I climbed into that. And as we say in betting or in the bookmaking industry, I cleaned up, absolutely cleaned up what I'd done in the games before. And plus some. So it was a great winning weekend. If the I'd like to say this though: if the Argentina game was first, and the New Zealand game and the Australia game, sorry, not the Australia game, the New Zealand game and the South African game, which I had minus 18, so I lost on that one. If they were the last two games, I would have probably broke even. So the way the schedule was, it benefited me. And again, I see Argentina playing last, and I'm very excited about that.
Well, we'll talk about that one at the end.
But his timing and betting might be my best bet of the weekend as well.
We'll see. Timing is everything, of course, and on time as usual. He's always reliable coming into the studio. The Mossman. Mossman, how you doing, mate? How are things over there? How's the family and how's the betting going?
Yeah, time is in short supply for me at the moment a little bit, so I'm kind of burning the candle at both ends. So I think I said last week that when you've got a newborn in the house, you have a kind of like in betting, you have a range of different outcomes in terms of the amount of sleep that you're getting. And I think last week I was sort of somewhere in the middle, and this week somewhere towards the lower end of the sleep cycle. So if I start talking more nonsense than usual, that'll be why.
Well, you won't be talking the most nonsense on the show, though. That I can guarantee you.
That's true. Yeah.
But we won't.
I win every week.
We won't point anything. No, excellent. Well, let's get straight into it, Mossman. I'm going to start with you. First of the weekend is Wales up against New Zealand. Now, this game I capped at 30.5. It opened here in South Africa, or the first I saw was 26.5. Went 24.5. I've seen 28.5 again. In fact, at one time I thought I saw 30. So a lot of bouncing around on this cap. And obviously this game taking place under the roof. We've got a points line of 59.5. Anything catch your eye here?
Not particularly, no. I just purely on numbers. So I think the market is at about 28. And the points line is probably spot on for where it is. So yes. So speaking of nonsense, like I think I might be sort of leaning slightly the opposite way that everybody else is going. I think everybody is going to want to be on the All Blacks here, and so I think that number is probably going to inflate somewhere closer to kickoff. And for me, that probably the only way I'm going to be involved in this game, because I see it's quite a high variance game, or see it as being quite a high variance game in the sense that it's kind of a second string All Black team, and there's a couple of different ways to look at that. They're going to be either highly motivated to make a statement, or are they going to struggle with their combinations, because some of these guys you would not have seen out on a rugby field for a long time. You know, Ruben Love hasn't really played. Karifi hasn't really played. There's a lot of guys in this team that have been Rico hasn't played. It's been a while for some of these guys. So will they be kind of up to the pace of the game? I mean, who knows? It's all kind of speculative at this point. So I just wonder whether if I could get crazy numbers on Wales, whether I might sort of lean in that direction. And the same with the points actually. So I'm just looking. If I look at this, I'm seeing a Wales points total of sort of 14.5, and then All Black points total of sort of 43.5. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how far some of these things could go, because I could be tempted to take some sort of alt line on say like a lower All Black points total, like say maybe something under 35, for example. Because I think it's a high variance game.
Yes.
Could go either way. Like they could win by 60, they could win by 30. I don't know. And so I think in the high variance spots, you kind of you can sort of swing for the fences a little bit, because you're going to get long tail outcomes, in the sense it could go in a number of different directions, and in that sense your betting can go in a number of quite big directions as well.
Right, well, Shane coming in and saying, making himself an Irish cup of tea, being a cold day over there. And yes, weather's going to be a big factor this weekend as well. So keep an eye on it. Not for this game, as we pointed out.
Not in this game.
Because it's under the roof. But yeah, not in this game. It's not going to be important. But Gav, I mean, Nathan pretty much summed up where I am on this game a little bit. Battling for any real inspiration. I think the market's fairly well set. I did cap it at 30 New Zealand, though. So I'm also in the camp of, if I'm going to have a bet here, it's a New Zealand minus, to quote something you would normally say, New Zealand minus or no bet. What are you thinking on this one?
100%. And I'm going to tell you that his Nathan's model here, it doesn't have enough decent data to give a proper number here. I obviously haven't seen his model, and I'm not being personal to Nathan here, but I think that the results that Wales have come up with in the last, they said it was something like 800 days since they'd won a game at the Principality, or whatever the stadium's called. This is minus or like don't watch. Never mind, don't have a bet. This kind of a game, I'm going to say you've got to take a bigger minus here. Don't take the 27 or 28. Go for a 35 or a 40, because from a probability perspective, this game has a much higher probability of reaching 60 than reaching 10 or 15 for that matter. So yes, Wales can lose by 25 or 28, but I'm not interested in 9 to 10 here. I'm going to look for a 3-1 punt here on minus New Zealand. And I don't care if that's 42 or 43 or 39 or whatever the number comes up to. I'd rather have a lower stake here. This is definitely not my best bet of the weekend. And I do hear Nathan saying that a lot of these players haven't played for a while. It just comes down to South Africa and New Zealand kids play from 6 years old. They don't play from 6 years old in Wales. I don't know. We just, I say we.
They're working down the lines.
Yeah, it's, you're never going to get not never, but it's very unlikely that you're going to get a Russia or a USA or I don't know, these smaller teams beating a stronger team, because they don't play from an early age. I mean, my kid's been playing rugby from 6 years old. He's 23. He's played rugby for 17 years. I didn't play rugby for 17 years. I went to an English soccer school in Joburg, so I only played rugby from 13. But the point is that we have a culture of rugby here. And, even I go back to Charles Savage telling me in 1999, there's no such thing as a second a New Zealand B team. There's no evidence for me that Wales can hold this team at all. I just think they get thumped. And if you don't believe me, don't have a bet. But if you do, go for a bigger price. I think 30 won't even be in the conversation come the 75th minute. I think this is going to be a thrashing. And I don't care that these players haven't played for a while. I think it's a thrashing. But it could also be an absolute abomination where they win by 15 or 22 or something like that. So it's not a big stake game for me. It's a lower stake, but a bigger price. That's how I tackle this.
Yeah, I think what I'd read into your comments, I would agree with you on that, in the sense that if I had to look at the handicap of 27, or Wales, if you took 10 points off either side, I would say that you got more chance of hitting the minus 37 than the plus 17 potentially. But ultimately, I think, I think in a way you also backed up what Nathan said there, because as much as you said they played together, you said they could only win by 15, in which case you'd argue that it was probably due to not having played together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting one. I think this looks like a game that's well set up. Chat and see if anybody else. Farid says in Clanathley, and I can never pronounce that. They play from 2 months old. Wales just don't have the talent at the moment. The Crow Tips coming in. I've watched enough of Wales this autumn that I'm almost sure they're shipping 50 here. Emil asked if there was any problems with the sound. He said he's only hearing Oracle. But I got a feeling that's got nothing to do with the sound.
That's not the sound.
I'm assuming you have a very good one. Very good one there.
There's been a couple of people talking about
that
they're sure that Wales will ship 50, but not sure how many Wales will score. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter how many Wales score if that's what you think, because the New Zealand points total is, as I said, 43.5. So, it seems like that's the way to look if that's what you think. Forget about Wales. You think New Zealand will score 50, and as an outline, I mean, I can just see if paying over. Sorry, that's the outline for the game. Yeah, no, I don't have the points total for that. But anyway, so 43.5. It looks like that'll be the way to go. I did take Freed's point. They said Wales are missing their best 2 players. I'm not sure who the second one is. I'm assuming he's referring to Jack Morgan.
He just said he's missing Captain Morgan, which bothers me because there's a rum called Captain Morgan. And if they're missing their rum, that might even be worse.
Well, I said Jack Morgan, but he I think he might actually be the captain, so he would be Captain Morgan. Yeah. I don't know how spicy he is, but yeah.
It's almost. Shane is just asking a question. If I told Oracle about something that Shane had put on Twitter, everyone's username on the live chat looks different to me today. That's why I'm getting a bit confused as to who's who. No, I haven't spoken to Oracle yet about that one, Shane. I'll certainly show him after. He's got Rusty's signature there over there in Ireland. I just want to give you Nathan, I'm just looking at PokerBet. So you're looking for alternate points lines on New Zealand, eh?
Yeah. I mean, what would over 50 pay?
Was that what you were looking for there?
Yes.
Over 50 would pay almost 2 to 1, 2.95 with these guys in the betting. So almost 2 to 1.
Go back to what I said earlier, well, what the comments have said and what Nathan's just said. If you like New Zealand points here, don't worry about the handicap. You're 100% right. They could score 60, and you're right. The handicap depends on how many Wales score. So maybe an over New Zealand points at a bigger price is actually the way to go. Absolutely, I hear that, and I agree.
Because this is the kind of game.
And Nathan, what do you think of that price?
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, because I do think it's the kind of game where you could potentially get, even with New Zealand scoring a lot, you could get backdoored on the handicap just by if people sort of switch off with 10 minutes to go and Wales score a couple of late ones. And
I'm going to change my call to over New Zealand points or no bet. How's that?
Yeah. And Nathan, I think you might have given me, I was thinking of something to put up in the blog on Good for the Game. I think maybe an alternate New Zealand points could be the play here. Maybe like an over 50.5 or something like that. I like that one as well. Mark Dunphy joining us from Ireland. Mark, we're going to talk you just in time, mate. We're going to talk Ireland v South Africa now. Cracking the big game. I mean, South Africa have been the team. There's very little doubt about that, but you don't have to go far back to when Ireland beat us in South Africa. And let's face it, Gavin, Ireland have been a bogey team for South Africa. The betting reflects the fact that South Africa have had the better year of the two, but Ireland were pretty impressive last week in disposing of Australia. We got plus 6.5. I'm just quickly going to look. That was from PokerBet. I'm just going to quickly go to Bet Exchange. That plus 5.5. That, Gavin, is the sort of region we're looking at here with a points line of 46.5. From what I can see, rain forecast early in the day might clear before the game. What are your thoughts on the big game?
You misspelled Leinster starting with an IRELAND. Yeah, listen, I think this handicap is way wrong. I think this should be a 12 to 18, somewhere in that range, minus 15. I don't know. South Africa are not the same team that they were a year ago, and South Africa are not the same team that played against Ireland in Ireland a while ago. This year has been phenomenal for us. I really think that South Africa have jumped hurdles and they've leapfrogged everybody this year. I think that for this handicap to lose, or in other words, for Ireland to beat this handicap, South Africa have to have a moderate game. And I was watching a podcast, one of the New Zealand podcasts this week, and one of the comments, it was Beaver, the 25 cap New Zealander.
Oh, yeah.
He said he doesn't think a 14-man team can win this game. And one of the comments was quite interesting to say, how can we even be talking about stuff like this? The reality is South Africa are in a different league. We've been -5 and -6 in Ireland in my betting career in the last 25 years. And we've won the odd one and we've lost the odd one. And we haven't done well recently against them. And Rusty hasn't won there. And he was on my way home this afternoon, I was listening to the radio, and Rusty was saying that even as a coach of Munster and other teams, he hasn't won at this stadium. So I don't think that's a factor, but South Africa are just much better than they were the last time they showed up there. I think this -6 or -5 or -7, that sort of region, under -10, I think is an algorithm number. It's not a how do you feel right now. And I'm definitely minus South Africa here or no bet, but I'm also going to go for a bigger price. I'm going to take a -10 or a -12 here because I honestly think this will be 15 to 20. I think South Africa beat them comfortably. If there's a red card, we've got a hope of winning. If there's no red card, we definitely beat that handicap.
Well, I'll quickly bring up Henrik's comment before I bring Mossman in. He says, I'm strong on the box minus here, dead honest, hoping the box get a red card again for my minus. And certainly if they do get a red card, I know Henrik will be climbing on in running. Shane is saying they should really beat this box. And Nathan, for me, I kind of hear what the guys are saying here. I think if you looked at it perhaps purely on maybe the last 12 months or so, you'd probably argue South Africa should be bigger favourites. And I guess it's just that history again. I wonder if the history against Ireland hasn't played a role in where this handicap has come out. But maybe you're going to tell me something totally different?
No, I'm not going to tell you something totally different. But this is a game I've actually already bet. I'm not going to say what that was because I know that would probably upset Hendrik, so I don't want to do that. So, but totally agree basically with everything you've said. So I think the cap and the true line in this game should be 10. So yeah, clearly it's a long way short. I think the other factor in this is that yes, Ireland, they had that good result against South Africa. I mean, it's over a year ago now. But if you look at the tiers amongst teams, and clearly there is tiers, like even within the sort of tier one at international level, just Ireland's recent results against teams in that top tier. So, they got absolutely humped by France in the Six Nations at home. So, at the stadium. And then, that loss to New Zealand and Chicago hasn't dated well because, the All Blacks actually look a little bit out of sorts. So that's not a good loss to have on the resume. So like just in recent times in games against really good teams, Ireland have struggled. Like I didn't take too much away from that Australia game. Like I thought, Australia were pretty bad in my opinion. I think their tactics were all wrong. I think they played into Ireland's hands. Not to sort of segue too much into it, but I just felt like Australia were just constantly trying to go wide. No go forward. Didn't kind of sort of put Ireland under any real pressure. It was just too easy for them, And so, as I said, took nothing away from last week's game. And despite that result for Ireland, when I generate my numbers, I still have South Africa winning. Well, not winning, but I have the line at 10. So, to me, this is still way short of where it should be.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way about it. Henrik just mentioning red cards having no effect on rugby games. And Henrik, I think your point, and I know you've held this view for quite a few years, but I don't think it has anything near the effect that it used to have. But I'm interested, Henrik, what about on the points line? Because to me, when there's a red card, teams do change the way they play. And yes, it may not affect the overall result that much, but I often find points tend to dry up as the team with the 14 players tends to maybe play a slower game and that sort of thing. So interested in your thoughts on that one. Mark Dunphy,
they
loyal to the bitter end, and
they kill clock. They 100% they kill clock.
Yes,
I mean, you see it every week. You know, they'll take shots at goal and take the maximum 30 seconds, let the clock run down. They'll do everything they can to use up as much of that 10 minutes as they can. Like, you know, everything slows down. So 100%, that's just part of the tactics.
Yeah, part of and so what I mean, I think bookies do tend to overreact to the red card in terms of the handicap, but I do find if I'm on overs points and that red card comes, I very seldom see that as a. In fact, Italy were playing well when the Box got their red card, and then I mean, they actually, I had them over 17.5 points, and I almost would have preferred the Box to go well clear or whatever, and just have a more open game, but it turned out to be very, very tight and dead. Henrik agreeing with me on the points there. Box red card probably killed Italy overs. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking at the time. Let's move on though to the next game, and we'll stick with Nathan. Okay, I'm going to bring this game up, Nathan. I'm not necessarily expecting you to have a view on this game, so if you don't, there's absolutely no problem, because I must be honest, I don't. Other than I would think that it's certainly they're not plus 25.5. Let me change that first of all against Chile. But okay, Italy minus 25.5 against Chile. I would think that my first gut would be that Italy should beat them by 40-50, but then I'll be straight up with you. I absolutely know so little about Chile. What are your thoughts on that one?
No, I don't know anything about Chile either. But I would also be interested to see if Italy are actually rolling out anything close to their first team. I'm assuming that they're probably resting, a lot of their stars. I wouldn't be very surprised if Minicello or Brix or Gabisi or some of these guys are actually playing in this game. So, what does the Italy B team look like? Is it like a kind of a bad Zebre? And if that's the case, like some of these lower teams, they're not as bad as you think. And especially if they've been kind of working towards our World Cup, qualification, that they might have actually been in camp for a while. And I mean specifically at this time of the cycle, because some of these teams like Belgium, for example, they've probably been playing together. They've got their kind of game together, and they're actually at this particular point in the World Cup cycle, they're actually quite competitive. Now we could be talking next year and it'd be completely different. Like these teams will all be getting thumped by 100, but these teams at this point, they actually managed to step up. So short answer is I don't know, and I wouldn't go anywhere near it. But don't be surprised if they kind of grind out like a 20-point win.
Yeah, and Henrik sort of backing up what we're saying. They're saying the Italy team is going to be important. So I did have a quick look for it. I wasn't sure if they'd released it, but it appears maybe they are, because Minicello is playing. Says Mad Dog Gods 5512 there. And I guess the other point on this game, and that's why teams are so important, is it's also Italy's, because it's their last game of the year. They're not like saving themselves for anything on that. So potentially, if they do pick a strong team, that minus is going to go out. It already has gone out a bit. I think it was a little bit lower early in the week. But yeah, to Nathan's point, you don't necessarily have to get involved in this one. And if I look at the time of kickoff, it's at the same time as France v Australia. And I know which game I'll be watching it. It's not going to be Italy v Chile, that's for sure. But it sounds from the guys in the live chat that Italy might be going with a reasonable team there. Gav, this game as well, I imagine you'll also be more focused on France against Australia. But any thoughts on this game?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is an opportunity to make some money. The plus looks very juicy. You got to look at the results that this Chile team has accomplished. Obviously, we can go back to the World Cup. They beat Fiji. They had good results in the World Cup, and
did Chile
I know that was a couple of years ago, but yeah, they played in the last World Cup.
I think you might be thinking of somebody else.
No, I think it was them.
Maybe just Google it, Gav.
Doesn't matter. Their last result
wasn't it Portugal or?
Yeah, it was Portugal. Sorry, you are correct. They've just qualified for the World Cup.
Folks have just lumped on the plus.
Yeah.
Quickly cash out that bet. Cash out.
The results I'm looking at here is they played the Scotland A and lost by 2. They thumped Romania by 24. They lost to the Netherlands. Okay, so that wasn't great. They smashed Canada.
Come on, Gav.
Smashed Brazil.
You're
No,
not
but you got
making
to
a
look at
case
that.
for
because-
Chile here at all.
No, I don't believe Italy are fielding their strongest team here. I just don't. And
There's actually been
I'm
a
not
few comments
talking-
in the chat and some of the names that people have been dropping. So I see Menincello that someone mentioned he's playing, Carbisi's playing. You know,
Let me try
if
pull
they're
up
playing
the
those
Italy
two,
team,
yeah.
But yeah,
I'm on the plus here. It's a small bet, and I will watch it. So what I do when there's 2 games on at the same time, I put the main game on the TV and I put the other one on the laptop. I'm having a bet here. I'm backing Chile. This number looks too high for me. I'm happy. It's not a big bet, but I'm backing Chile.
yep, fair enough. I mean, there is going to be support for both teams on the handicap. But this game for me is a sit out. If anything, I'm on Italy on the minus, particularly if they, they're more of their top players selected. It sounds like they're taking this one quite seriously. Garbisi's actually playing at 9, which is quite interesting. And
Don't even know who that is.
I must say,
Sounds like an Aussie.
I think that's a different Garbisi, isn't?
Is
I think
it?
Alessandro Garbisi might be. Is it his brother or something? I think.
Yeah.
I think the.
Possibly.
Yeah,
The
so
bottom
last
line
week-
is
that's a good point.
Paolo
Good
Garbisi.
point, Nathan. Last week, somebody said Pendergast shouldn't play. I can't remember who it was, but I saw there were a couple of them. There's probably 5 of them. I don't know in the greater squad. So yeah, I don't know these people's names.
I don't think Jones should play for Wales.
Jones
I'll
for
leave it at
Wales.
that.
Yeah, Williams.
Right,
Listen,
yeah.
Netherlands.
When you've got tier 3 versus tier 1 B plus, just have a small bet and pick a team and have a go.
Yeah.
I don't care about who's playing.
Just
25 sounds too much. Simple as that.
Zambasta coming in. Netherlands is not a bad team, so he's a bit in support of you. I didn't know that Zambasta must have been.
They're not in the World Cup.
But anyway, let's move on.
No,
I think we spent too much.
not
We
as good as
spent too much
Belgium.
time on a game that. Belgium. 13 all. I saw very impressive result. But let's go, Gav. This game, I know you've got an opinion on it. They've handicapped it where I thought they'd handicap it. I went 15.5. There was 13.5. It's moved out. You, I know, was expecting this handicap to be a lot lower. So I'm thinking you were on the plus here.
Brent, I almost banned myself from betting on a game involving Australia because I've really got them wrong, and cleaned up last week on that the Ireland game. I liked that minus. I know you guys didn't, but that was a good result for me. So I'm allowed to bet on this game, and I just remember Australia coming close, playing them away, and Australia's year is not their year, sorry, their tour has been rubbish. They've been absolute rubbish. They've been thumped. 16 sounds too much in this game. I'm going to tell you, I actually don't know what to do here. I'm saying to myself, it's Australia or no bet, and I'm very close to no bet. On the barometer of 0 to 100, I'm sitting at about 10. I'm nowhere near the 50-50 line. I'm currently in no bet territory. I'm going to watch a little bit of this game before I get involved. France don't impress me that much, and Australia really don't impress me. So I don't know what to do here. I'm probably not going to have a bet. I'm very close to not having a bet, and I've got no view on this. It's Australia or no bet, and it looks like no bet right now. Don't know what to do here.
I must say, I'm also battling a little bit with this one, and I'm going to bring the Mossman in to get his views now. But I can just tell you, I know, Gav, you like to recap sometimes on some things. I can't remember the year, but it must have been 12, 15 years ago when I was heavy into my spread betting. And I took an in-running spread play. Australia were playing France. France were threatening to break through. They were dominating the scrums. They had about 7 minutes of scrum on the Aussie line. And I sold, what did I do? I bought French supremacy against Australia. And I can't remember the result, but Australia gave them like 50 points. It was ridiculous. I lost absolute stopper. So I've just never forgotten that game. It still hurts. And for that reason as well, I'm a bit nervous about this one, but I'm actually in the camp here, Nathan, that if I had to push a bet on this one, I'm thinking Australia could fold and France could run away with it. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of in the same camp as you, actually. So I'm I'm ultimately I'm still kind of undecided on it, but I make this game sort of 19-20, and there's still 15.5s kind of kicking around out in the market. So for me, it would be the opposite. It would be France or no bet, and Australia. I mean, they were just so bad last week, and like I'm not a fan of necessarily trying to handicap motivation too much, but I think you were spot on last week, Brent, when you talked about Australia sort of they've coming to the end of a really long kind of grind of a season for them, and it did feel like they were sort of creeping towards the finish line. We know this is the last game for the coach. I don't know what, sometimes, I wonder, have they kind of given up listening to him because he's not going to be there anyway, because you do get sort of weird interactions between players and coaches when there is sort of transitions, changes in management, that sort of thing. So there's a couple of things like I do think there's a possibility that Australia could kind of give up. France have picked a really strong team, so they're max motivated. They're going for it. I can see France really putting a hurt on them, but the flip side is that France have a funny kind of tendency to not run up big scores perhaps when they should. Like they didn't cover against Fiji last week. We've seen them in other games, like games against Japan, for example. I think there was one last year where they have big caps and then don't cover. It's just there's something about it. It's like it seems like such a cliche, like about how unpredictable the French are, but it can be that way. But for me it's France or no bet. I'm still kind of a bit undecided, and to be fair, I might also sort of treat this one the way that we have for some of the other games, and think like if France are going to win this one, are they going to win it by 25 plus, and maybe look at an outline there, because I don't generally like these big caps in games between proper tier one sort of nations. So on the surface of it, I don't like that big number. So if you're going to play it, you might as well play something a bit bigger. But as I said, France, I make it sort of 19-20, so it's France or no bet.
I just want to chat about the points quickly. The Crow Tip saying over 53 for weather's good. Crow Tips, yeah, the weather is key. I did see the temperature about 3 degrees, so very cold. The forecast I checked when I did it, I think it was this morning actually, was that there is rain expected, and it looks as though conditions may not be great. Henrik, I think, also was saying, what's the points line and potentially overs. So yeah, just be careful of the weather here, guys, as far as that goes. I saw Coyle posted on the Good for the Game forum. He's, of course, over in the UK, and just saying over there they've got terrible weather in the week, so just be careful. Probably all around those sort of areas. Yeah. Zambuster making the point, Oz are missing Tate McDermott, totally agree. Sorry, Mossman?
And I was going to say the Australian points total 17.5 as well, which it might seem low, but like if the weather's not great and France really are grinding them, and you end up with a kind of a result like you did last week, like Australia really did look pretty clueless. It was difficult to see how they were going to score. So 17.5 could look pretty high if it turns out that way.
Right, let's. Someone jumped right up to the top in the comments. Chris is saying it's -7 in the Isle of Man. Hey, Chris, man, I trust you keeping warm there. That's cold. I don't know if I've ever been in -7. Maybe when I was in the UK 3 years ago. Let's stick with the Mossman here. Got another game which I'm also thinking he may not be too strong on, but let's see. Scotland -42.5. This line's been fairly stable all week against Tonga, and a points line of 65.
Yeah, no, I just don't have a feel for these kind of second string tier 2 kind of games. I don't follow them. I don't pay attention to those scores. I don't track them. They're not part of my database.
Yeah.
And I think
fair enough. I mean,
for the people that do, like, I think they probably do fairly well at it. But at the same time, like, I imagine that the limits on some of these games are pretty low. It's just like anything. It just depends where you want to spend your time.
I just enjoy this comment from Shane saying his Crow Tips on the Isle of Man for tax reasons, sign of a true professional. The question is, will Oracle be moving to the Isle of Man soon? for tax reasons. Oracle, before I bring you in on this one, I am going to say I'm considering having a points play on this one, and I'm considering unders, and that's purely based on conditions. When I've checked the conditions in Edinburgh, it really does look like some proper rain going to be teaming down. I tried to do some research on Tonga, and quite frankly, the Twitter account was updated last in 2014. The website, I think, was updated a couple of years ago or something. It really is difficult to find anything on these guys. They got some very mixed results into. I've seen a couple of decent ones, and then they've got, I think Japan hammered them, and that tells me that they can't be that strong. So on that note, let me bring you in here and see what your thoughts are on this one.
Okay, a couple of things, Brent. So first of all, these videos made me so much money on YouTube. When I say so much, I didn't make a lot on YouTube, but I made a lot of money from the Tonga people. They pronounce it Tonga.
I remember that.
Not Tonga, like we say. They obviously get starved of. So on this show, on your YouTube here, just hashtag Tonga. You'll get a few more views than you normally do, because I definitely did when I was doing individual videos. So I'm going to tell you, the first time these two teams played was in 1995 World Cup, and I was at that game. In fact, the first try that was scored in that match was scored right in front of me at Loftus. They played at Loftus. They've only played 5 times together. They've only beaten this handicap once, and it was 40 points. So I'm going to tell you the plus, never mind the weather, the plus is definitely too high here. I understand what Nathan's saying, but I'm somebody that looks for these kind of games bookmakers get wrong often because they don't happen often enough. And you can have algorithms, you can have all sorts of things. And the reality is this kind of game, it can be anything. It can be 20, can be 60, can be 40. So again, go for a lower plus for a bigger price. I'm happy to take plus 33 here, for instance, or plus 35 and have a go. Again, not a big bet, but I will watch this game. And this plus looks way too high for me. I don't care what they've done recently. There's no history that they're going to get thumped by obviously a weaker Scottish team. I don't believe they're going to play their full team. I don't know. Maybe they are, but there you go. In fact, this team beat France in the 2011 World Cup. Yeah, they beat France in the 2011 World Cup. They beat them. And they had a plus 26 handicap that day. 28, somebody in the high 20s. Yeah, I'm a Tonga plus punter here all day long. I'm definitely having a bet. It's not or no bet. I'm definitely on the Tonga plus. This seems way too high for me.
I see there was a comment there about the Tonga playing the emerging Scotland team, and it was sort of like 17-12 or 0-0 at halftime or something along those lines. So I see there's a Tonga points. Yeah, that's interesting to me. I think if the conditions are bad and the points total for Tonga is sort of 10.5, I don't know how you get at it, but how would you bet a Tonga 0 for the game or even for the half? If it's possible to bet them to not.
I don't see them anymore. They'll have. Yeah, some of the bookmakers have win to 0.
I never see it anymore, Gav.
Yeah, because they got thumped in it.
I don't see it very often.
Them out.
Oh, is it? Yes, because I remember that bet that Gavin's talking about, the win to 0. And I mean, obviously it happens very seldom, but if you caught it at big odds every now and again, and I would agree with you, Marsman, it's a sort of game where if Scotland go ahead early, there's no more going for posts, and then you're relying on a Tonga try in bad conditions. Well, if you just have to avoid a Tonga try in bad conditions. So that's the way we would have got at it back in the day. I just don't know if bookies offer that market anymore. But
if their points are 10.5, I'm going to tell you go over 10.5, because there's only the one game, and that was the one I watched where they scored less than 10 points. So for me, I'm over 10.5, and I'm definitely on the plus.
Yeah,
I think
I'd really like to see those conditions, because if it is bad, and so because 10.5, it's sort of implying that they score, it's a 50-50 proposition whether they get 1 or 2 tries. So you're probably looking at, if you looked at the tries, I'm sure it's probably like even money bet around 1.5 or something. It'd be very easy, because you're right, they're highly unlikely to go for posts if they're getting pumped. That then that brings the 0 into play. So as I said, I'm not sure how you get at the nil, but I still think that would be an interesting place to look if in bad conditions.
Yeah. So how strong is
I'm
this
just
team?
looking,
You
sorry,
guys tell me. I don't know. How
No,
strong is the Scotland team?
I haven't seen a
Well,
Scotland
I haven't
team.
even seen. Yeah.
Let me have a look and see if not all the teams are actually out. So I'll just have a quick look and see.
So just
No,
looking at the weather, guys,
no teams as far as
while
I can see.
Nathan's having a look there, it definitely is rain all day by the looks of it. Quite windy, 29
hold on,
kilometers
Brent.
windy, which is
You got to
starting to get up there.
remember. You've got to remember that this Tonga team, where they live in the South Pacific, they have rain. So rain's not and you've seen their pitches. Well, not necessarily Tonga, but you've seen Fiji's pitches. Very similar. They're not great. These guys are used to playing in the mud and the rain. So this is not something that's going to be unfamiliar to them. Scotland obviously are used to it as well. So this is I'm going to say that the only thing that's going to happen here is the amount of points might decrease because of the bad conditions, but it's not going to take away the ability of teams to play in horrible conditions.
No, I think the pitch, I could be wrong. I think the pitch is anyway a good one. But the point I'm making is the weather's not great. You got, it's cold. It's going to be rainy and windy.
Miserable.
So the total points
if it's windy, you've also, because then you've got wind chill. So that temperature that temperature that you're seeing there is probably in the minus when you've got like a 25+ km/h winds.
The wind chill factor, they called it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's probably also less about being used to the conditions and more about, well, if you do have bad conditions, then you change the way you play. And is how good is Tonga at sort of driving mauls and these things? I mean, the reality is it's probably not a huge strength of their game, right? So they're going to have to change the way they're playing to adjust the conditions, and it's probably not going to suit them. I mean, we could go around back and forth about this, but I just think if you're looking for kind of like long tail outcomes in games like this, that's where I think like the nil comes into play. And as I said, if it's just like over under whether they score one try or not, well, I mean, they could score 5, but if they could score nil, then that gives you a lot of options. There's someone there talking about bet builder win to nil.
Quite a few guys making the point that Bet365 offer the bet to nil, or you can do it in a bet builder. Which
love to know what the odds are.
Henrik reckons good chance of a
great.
Yeah, it's probably 25 to 1, 30 to 1. I don't think it's going to be bigger than that.
Emil, still the biggest ever betting voucher winner on our channel. I think he won a 25,000 rand betting voucher from GG Gaming once. Probably
what happened to them,
probably scored 3
tries. Back on the show, Gary. Get him back on. Let him give us some prizes.
Yeah, I was back on. We won't bring him. I mean, he doesn't do much in the way of sports betting on his site anymore. But yeah, he was a great character. Just a comment on Tonga. I think it's fair to say Tonga are not a great side. Now, I think with this, I think they're planning for the World Cup to have quite a few, maybe there's an English. Is it maybe I might be mixing up, but guys who played for New Zealand, for example, that were Tongan born. There's that rule now that after I think 3 years they're eligible. So they're not going to be world beaters, but they may, and that's where the team news. I don't know if they've got access to any of those players at the moment, but if you start getting some of those ex-All Black guys or guys who never quite made the All Blacks now coming to play for Tonga, they might become a little bit more competitive. But for me, I'm just looking at conditions here and thinking total points 65.5. I'll probably be going unders there and frankly hoping for a bit of a scrappy game.
Yeah.
Mad Dog coming in. Tonga beat Canada, who beat the USA, who lost 85-0 to Scotland. Yeah, so if you read a line of form through for that, you can take Scotland minus 100 probably, and you'll be okay. Exactly. But Crow Tips reckons Scotland's the team to be on here, and we know he's a professional punter hiding out in the tax-free haven of the Isle of Man. Right, let's move on to the last game, which if I did say South Africa, Ireland is the biggest game, well, then for me, this is without doubt. Well, Australia, France, big. But for me, this is the second biggest game of the weekend. The handicap's been stable. It's also exactly where I set it at England minus 9.5 against Argentina. I'm going to get Mossman first crack at this one. It should be great, Mossman, because I know Oracle's going to touch on it as well. That Argentina comeback was superb. You must have loved it as well, because I know you were on on Argentina pregame. I don't know if you were watching the game, but if you were at 21-0, you would have been thinking, let me switch the TV off. But it was an amazing comeback. Argentina delivered for all of you guys. And now, though, they've got a big task against an England side that have beaten the All Blacks. And that was my highlight of the weekend, albeit one of only 2 highlights on the weekend for me. But England were top class against the All Blacks, picked a very different side this week, -9.5. What are we doing?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it. And it's probably I watched the replay of that game. So it was one of these ones where if you saw the score, you're kind of like, oh well, great, like a easy winner. Sometimes it's best to not know.
Yes, if you saw the result, yes.
Certainly the emotional roller coaster. So I'm going to digress here for a minute, but I remember listening to a podcast that it was a guy was talking about betting in general, especially like automated type betting where you've got some bot or something that's out making bets, and he was talking about how in a lot of ways, you're better off just say logging in at the end of the day or the end of the week or whatever it is, and just seeing if your balance is up and down, and never going back and actually looking at the individual kind of like chart of how it went to figure out how much of a roller coaster it was and how much you would have been down at some point. Like you're almost better to not know, just like emotionally. So, but just back to this game. So there is no Argentina team out at the moment. I don't think, but there is an England team. At the moment, I've got this game at 7. So and I see there's 10.5 out there. So I'm firmly in the Argentina camp at the moment, like until I see an Argentina team. And I do think that they just have like a really kind of uncanny ability, I think, Argentina, just to stay in the fight. Like they just seem to have kind of developed into this team that kind of doesn't really give up, doesn't often get humped. I know they got humped in South Africa, but like they stay in the contest, and they're always the chance, I think, of kind of covering through the back door or winning outright. Like I don't know. There's something about their style, and I can't quite pin it down. But like they're very kind of buttoned up. They seem quite disciplined. They have a game plan. They stick to it. Like they know their strengths. Like there's just a lot to like about them. So like England are, like, don't get me wrong, they are like a force at the moment. And I think you'd be understandably a little bit nervous betting against England. But at 10.5, it's quite a big number. If Argentina sort of take it to them, you're just hoping that they keep the game close. And maybe in a game where England aren't necessarily kind of big favourites, where there's probably like a different feel that will they get nervous if the game is close, which is something I guess they haven't had to deal with maybe in the last few weeks, where it's been probably a little bit easier for them, or that there was kind of lower expectations, whereas here they're kind of expected to win. How do they perform as a bigger favorite? So as of right now, as I said, I'll make the game 7, so I'm on the Argentina camp. And then just on the points, actually, it's an interesting one, because at the moment I'm actually would look at the over again. And I know I sort of was on the over in the Argentina game last week, and I don't often go for overs, but I do think that this is a little bit short. Conditions obviously need to look at it, but like I have something sort of around 33.5. So that looks a little short to me as well. Would rather bet against England and lose money than have to root for England. Yeah, I can understand that. There's there's always that feeling, as a New Zealander and people in New Zealand around the English rugby team. But then they they manage to surface up players, quite unlikable players like Henry Potter. It's just amazing that like they'll take it to the next level.
Yeah, not very well liked outside of England, I must admit. Although I've got a bit of a soft spot for the English. I've backed them a few times over the years. I'm actually in the camp of England here. I think the England, I know there's lots of talk about the hype and saying now they're World Cup contenders. The reality is they were World Cup contenders last time. They made the semi-finals. They nearly beat South Africa, went down by a point. So it's not going to take that much improvement for them to be there or thereabouts. I like this English team, but I also like Argentina. So I am battling a bit. I'm waiting to see the Argentina team. I haven't seen it yet. Have a look at the England team, and I don't mind the team they're putting out there. But Oracle, let me see if you're going to be rubber stamping the Mossman's thoughts on Argentina. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if you don't.
So Henrik said he's with me. He hasn't heard me yet, but he does know me. So yes, of course. I do remember Henrik.
He knows you.
I don't know how good your memory is, Henrik, but that I must have really, really, really irritated you because I came on that show in 2018 or 2017 with an Argentina shirt on, and they were playing at home against South Africa, and I think a handicap was 7, and I said, don't worry about that. Back them on the board. I'm going to say the same thing here. You can go and take Argentina on the board here. You're probably going to get at 9. You're probably getting 33-10, maybe 7-2 if you look around. Over 3-1, definitely at 9-point handicap. I think this handicap's way too high. New Zealand crumbled last week. They were so bad. At no point, in fact, in the beginning of the game when they scored 12, because I was like, it wasn't my biggest bet, and I was thinking, geez, they score and they score again, and I thought, they could run away with this. He's got the worst memory. That's good that you don't remember that night because you were irritated with me.
Most of Oracle's mates have bad memories, Henrik.
They do, or no memories. Not bad. They've got nothing.
Oh, no memory.
Yeah, this is going to be my best bet of the weekend as well, and I've got to wait until the end of Sunday. I just think that a team that's beaten the British and Irish Lions, beaten New Zealand, beaten Australia, I'm going to say thumped the handicap against Scotland, and this is probably their best year. Argentina, I don't think in their history of playing rugby, I don't think they've had a better year of 2025. In fact, when it comes to the rugby awards, this should be team of the year. They ran South Africa close, better than anybody's done, and I'm going to take away the 22-0. Australia coming back. We just lost our marbles for that moment, and obviously they lost by 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it was, at Twickenham against us. I just think that the team of the year is Argentina. They've beaten every handicap. I don't think they've lost a handicap this year. They've beaten everybody, and they've beaten every handicap. Sorry, they haven't won every game except for those July games where they lost against England, the junior team. So my question to you, Brent, is how would you rate this, and Mossman for that matter, how would you guys rate this English team in comparison to last week's team in a 0 to 100 scale? How strong is the paper team this week compared to last week's game against New Zealand?
Oh, it's very similar. Like, there's not a huge amount of difference. They've shuffled things around a little bit. Like, Genge is back at prop. Freddie Stewart, I think, is back. He didn't play last week. Slade's in for Ollie Lawrence. So they've moved things around a little bit. Spencer in for Mitchell. So I'd say last week's team possibly marginally better, but it's really close.
Yeah,
this looks like a bunch of.
This is still a. What's that, Gav?
No, I was going to say these.
I agree with Mossman there. It's a good time. Okay, sorry, Gav. Go for it.
No, you talk.
I think my sound is okay. Now, I think what Mossman is saying is right. I'm very much. I'll give last week's team a slight edge, but I look at this English bench. Pollock, not everyone's cup of tea, but I do think he's the real deal. Mitchell, I've been very impressed with his benching this week. And Marcus Smith, who came on early last week, and I think that was one of the good things for England. Stewart's a solid player, but Marcus Smith creates stuff. And I think, it's weird to say, because up until last week, I'd say Argentina weren't the best second-half team. They had some pretty poor second halves. Think about it against Australia and that. But last week, of course, they were amazing in the second half. But I'm expecting England to run away with it in the second half at some point. So I'm on the English on the handicap here. But now go for it, Gav.
No, I just think it's too high. I think this is this is team of the year for me. It really is. I mean, I don't know the guys watching here, the viewers, how they feel, but this is team of the year. I honestly, without looking at the numbers, I think this team's beaten every handicap, and if they haven't, they probably missed one. This has been a fantastic team this year. Well coached. They've showed up. They haven't been thumped, except for that game. I suppose they haven't beaten every handicap. They got beaten by New Zealand in their first game. I don't know. I just like them. I got a good feel about them. And you're right. They haven't been a great second half team. But I think what happened last week was Scotland, and a lot of teams have done this before, to get well ahead. 3 tries in, and they think they've won the game. And then they take a penalty. Like that was, and I got to tell you one quick story. So it's Sunday afternoon. My wife had a long week. She's half asleep on the couch with the game on Sunday, whatever, 6:45. She says to me, "Involved in this game?" I said, "Sure." She says, "Which team have you backed?" I said, "Argentina." She goes, "The one with 7," because it was 21-7 at that moment. I said, "Don't worry, they're coming." And then after the game, I said to her, "So how's my 7 team looking right now?" Just smiles. "How much do I get?" she says. So yeah, it was a great game to watch. Loved it.
Cool. Well, let's say goodbye to Mossman there, because he does have a meeting in about 3 minutes' time. I'm hoping it's an online meeting, Mossman, because if you've got to drive there, you're in a lot of trouble. Unless it's in an hour and 3 minutes' time. Sorry, I might get the time wrong. But
No,
thanks a lot, Mossman. Great to have you on the show.
No worries. I think,
okay.
Yeah, and it's in terms of best bet, like I think South Africa. Like for me, I think that's the standout bet on the board.
Second best for me.
Excellent.
Cool. All right, thanks, guys.
Cool. Oracle and I will wrap things up, Mossman. Thanks a lot. Hope your meeting goes well, and have a cracking weekend. There's the Mossman joining us, of course, from Auckland in New Zealand. And Gavin, well, that brings us to the end. We may as well run through your best bets. Yes, we've had so many live comments today. I've actually battled to keep up with the show. But yeah, Chris Rowe, the Crow Tips, and myself, we're on England. Gavin and Mossman on Argentina. But Gav, what are your best bets?
Yeah, Argentina for me. And you know what? I'm not even going to take the handicap. I'm taking Argentina on the board here. And during the game, if I get a nice big, England go 10-0 up or 12-0 up or 14-0 up, I'm going to take a handicap and I'll collect some more. But I honestly think Argentina in this match, I'm not going to say they've got the wrong favourite, but my gosh, this has been a great year for them. This is their last game of the year. Content Pomey, I mean, I made so much money on that when he was playing. I don't know. This team it's the team of the year, and I think they're going to have a good result on the weekend. Can they win the game? Of course they can. I think the probability is a lot higher for them than plus 9.5 suggests. I think this handicap should be 3 or 4, maybe 2. I think this is a 15-10 team that you're getting 7-2. I just think there's a lot of value in backing them on the board here. They can win, and I think they will win.
Right.
The problem, sorry. Johan
Johan's wiki.
Yeah, he didn't answer me last week.
No, he did, Gavin. So Johan actually did put it, but I do want to say.
All right, I've stopped you talking. I'll carry on with this.
Yes, I'm battling to get a word in with you this show. He did answer you below the video. There's 2 videos on YouTube. It's because of the StreamYard are doing things. So it's something to do with if you're watching the show on your cell phone or if you're watching it on a computer. It's a bit weird. There were 2 shows last week, but Johan did answer on the one. I think he's 4 out of his last 8. He's hit the treble. So he did. Johan can confirm that he did answer that. Box minus the best bet for Henrik. And box to win by 3 scores, says Henrik. So yeah, he's very confident on that one. And Shane saying we've only seen 1 underdog win. Sorry, Gav, carry on there. I just wanted to run through those things. What else did you want to add?
I was just going to say with Johan's treble, only problem with the over 59 is that Wales may not score many points. So I think his treble's good, but I would replace over New Zealand rather than over points in the actual match. That's the only thing I would do differently there. Of course, it can win, and if he's getting, if he's winning every second bet here at 6-1 or 11-2, that's obviously fantastic. So well done. Yeah, my best bet Argentina, second best bet South Africa, And I'm going to say that Tonga bet is the third one, and I'm going to chuck in Chile plus for a quad. So, yeah, very interested this week. Looks good. I'm just worried about Wales next week. And I don't know if you remember, Brent, I think it was 99 or not 99, sorry, 96 or 97. We beat Wales like 96-12 or something like that. So it's going to be a hard task breaking the South Africa over Wales record, but it might run quite close because our C team can beat whatever they're going to put up next week. And I believe there's quite a few players missing, but I think it could be an absolute thumping. I'm very interested to see that handicap next week, and I wouldn't bother with a 9-10. You can probably go for a nice 15-10 or 2-1 alternative market, just a few points higher. And that's something I'm just going to leave with this last note. I'll obviously mention it again next week, but bookmakers battle to price up the next line after 9-10. So we all know a game is 9-10, right? So an even game is 9-10 for bookmakers, and -1 is even money, and -2 is 11-10, and -3 is 12-10. But it doesn't work like that when you get into the 50s and 60s. So, New Zealand's handicap's 26-27 this week with a full strength Wales team. I mean, it's definitely the highest handicap Wales have ever had against New Zealand. And then you're going to get next week's game where even whatever Russie picks, it doesn't matter. He's blooded 47 players this year, 48 players. This could be a massive handicap. And let's say it's 50. It doesn't go 9-10, 50, even money 51. Even money goes to 53 mathematically. So there is a lot of value in the bookmakers' bad maths next week. And I'm pretty sure we'll see it. It happens almost every time in these high handicap games. Anyway, enjoy the week. Thanks very much. I'm out. Cheers.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens next week, that handicap. I don't think we'll get as high as 50, but you'd have to think it's going to be pretty high.
Could be.
Of course, yeah. I'm expecting, it could be, but I'm expecting Russie, certainly to test his depth a little bit next week, if I can put it that way. But thanks to Oracle, he's got some confident bets lined up. He's coming in firing after last week. And thanks to all the guys in the live chat. Coming in hot. What do you say? Argentina? Tell me that again.
Argentina! That's what you shout. I just remember when Contempomi was in that World Cup in 2007. Can't remember whether it was the quarterfinal or but they won a big game, and I just myself and a guy called
they beat France in the opening game.
Yeah, no, they beat France twice. They were 6-1 in the first game, the opening game. And I still remember one of the bigger punters. I was working at Marshall's at the time, and he said to me, they got no chance. And he took a bet on the handicap. I said, bro, they're winning this game. And they were 6-1, and I climbed all over that. And then they beat them again, and they weren't 6-1. I think they were 3-1 or 4-1 for the second game. But I just remember shouting Contempomi because he just scored tries, and it was wonderful. Loved it.
Well, Shane, enjoy the fact that the Boks are in your city. It should be a cracking game. I heard from Dave Cooney as well. He was saying not going to the game. He'll be sipping £7.50.
He's not going to the game because it's probably expensive. How much are the tickets?
Someone mentioned, I actually didn't think
€100 or something.
No, I actually want to go back up and look. I mean, I've got to scan. Let me see if I can find it. Someone actually mentioned the cost of the tickets. It's good. I thought I should have starred that one back. Oh, here we go. It was Shane himself. He said there were ticket price complaints for Saturday, £160 or 23, or 2,000. What does that mean?
2,300.
Yeah, I was going to say not 23,000 rand. Geez, I know our exchange rate is bad, but the point is £160 for a tier 1 seat. So I'm not too sure of that. But Mad Dog actually came underneath and said it's cheaper to fly to Chicago to watch Ireland rather than watch him play in Dublin. Yeah. Which I'm sure there's not quite the case, but yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. That's how they're very expensive, Gav, those tickets, but I'm sure they'll sell out.
Yeah, they will. They got money there.
Yeah,
Shane will be a millionaire if he comes to South Africa.
Yeah, you're right. Anyways, thanks everyone. Thanks for the guys in the live chat. Thanks to the Oracle and the Mossman who had to pop off for a meeting. We'll see you next week for the handicap rugby chat that matters, and of course we'll discuss the South Africa Welsh handicap. Thanks everyone.